Thursday, July 6th, 1944. Dear Kitty, it strikes fear to my heart when Peter talks of later being a criminal or of gambling. Although it's meant as a joke, of course, it gives me the feeling that he's afraid of his own weakness. Again and again I hear from both Margot and Peter, yes, if I was as strong and plucky as you are, if I always stuck to what I wanted, if I had such persistent energy, yes then, I wonder if it's really a good quality not to let myself be influenced. Is it really good to follow almost entirely my own conscience? Quite honestly, I can't imagine how anyone can say, I'm weak, and then remain so. After all, if you know it, why not fight against it? Why not try to train your character? The answer was, because it's so much easier not to. This reply rather discouraged me. Easy? Does that mean that a lazy, deceitful life is an easy life? Oh no, that can't be true. It mustn't be true. People can so easily be tempted by slackness and by money. I thought for a long time about the best answer to give Peter, how to get him to believe in himself and, above all, to try and improve himself. I don't know whether my line of thought is right though, or not. I've so often thought how lovely it would be to have someone's complete confidence, but now that I'm that far, I realize how difficult it is to think what the other person is thinking and then to find the right answer. More especially because the very ideas of easy and money are something entirely foreign and new to me. Peter's beginning to lean on me a bit, and that mustn't happen under any circumstances. A type like Peter finds it difficult to stand on his own feet, but it's even harder to stand on your own feet as a conscious, living being. Because if you do, then it's twice as difficult to steer a right path through the sea of problems and still remain constant through it all. I'm just drifting around, have been searching for days, searching for a good argument against that terrible word, easy, something to settle it once and for all. How can I make it clear to him that what appears easy and attractive will drag him down into the depths where there is no comfort to be found, no friends and no beauty, depths from which it is almost impossible to raise oneself. We all live, but we don't know the why or the wherefore. We all live with the object of being happy. Our lives are all different and yet the same. We three have been brought up in good circles. We have the chance to learn, the possibility of attaining something. We have all reason to hope for much happiness, but we must earn it for ourselves. And that is never easy. You must work and do good, not be lazy and gamble, if you wish to earn happiness. Laziness may appear attractive, but work gives satisfaction. I can't understand people who don't like work, yet that isn't the case with Peter. He just hasn't got a fixed goal to aim at, and he thinks he's too stupid and too inferior to achieve anything. Poor boy, he's never known what it feels like to make other people happy, and I can't teach him that either. He has no religion, scoffs at Jesus Christ, and swears, using the name of God. Although I'm not orthodox either, it hurts me every time I see how deserted, how scornful, and how poor he really is. People who have a religion shouts be glad, for not everyone has the gift of believing in heavenly things. You don't necessarily even have to be afraid of punishment after death. Purgatory, hell, and heaven are things that a lot of people can't accept, but still a religion, it doesn't matter which, keeps a person on the right path. It isn't the fear of God, but the upholding of one's own honor and conscience. How noble and good everyone could be if, every evening before falling asleep, they were to recall to their minds the events of the whole day and consider exactly what has been good and bad. Then, without realizing it, you try to improve yourself at the start of each new day. Of course, you achieve quite a lot in the course of time. Anyone can do this. It costs nothing and is certainly very helpful. Whoever doesn't know it must learn and find by experience that a quiet conscience makes one strong. Yours and Saturday, July 8th, 1944. Dear Kitty, the chief representative of the business, Mr. B, has been in Beverwidge and managed, just like that, to get strawberries at the auction sale. They arrived here dusty, covered with sand, but in large quantities. No less than 24 trays for the office people and us. That very same evening we bottled 6 jars and made 8 pots of jam. The next morning Meep wanted to make jam for the office people. At 12:30, no strangers in the house, front door bolted, trays fetched, Peter, Daddy, Van Don clattering on the stairs, and get hot water. Margot, bring a bucket. All hands on deck. I went into the kitchen, which was chock full, with a queer feeling in my tummy. Meep, Ellie, tumultuous, Hank, Daddy, Peter, the families in hiding and their supply column, all mingling together, and in the middle of the day tool. People can't see in from outside because of the net curtains, but even so, the loud voices and banging doors positively gave me the jitters. Are we really supposed to be in hiding? That's what flashed through my mind, and it gives one a very queer feeling to be able to appear in the world again. The pan was full, and I dashed upstairs again. The rest of the family was seated round our table in the kitchen busy stock picking. At least that's what they were supposed to be doing. More went into mouths than into buckets. Another bucket would soon be required. Peter went to the downstairs kitchen again. The bell rang twice. The bucket stayed where it was. Peter tore upstairs, locked the cupboard door. We were kicking our heels impatiently, couldn't turn on a tap, even though the strawberries were only half washed. The rule is, if anyone in the house used no water because of the noise, was strictly maintained. At 1 o'clock Hank came and told us that it was the postman. Peter hurried downstairs again. Ting-a-ling, the bell, right about turn. I go and listen to see if I can hear anyone coming, first at our cupboard door and then creep to the top of the stairs. Finally, Peter and I both lean over the banisters like a couple of thieves, listening to the din downstairs. No strange voices. Peter sneaks down, stops halfway, and calls out, Ellie. No answer. One more. Ellie. Peter's voice is drowned by the din in the kitchen. He goes right down and into the kitchen. I stand looking down tensely. Get upstairs at once, Peter. The accountant is here. Clear out. It was tumultuous speaking. Peter comes upstairs sighing. The cupboard door closes. Finally, Crowler arrives at 1:30. Oh, dearie me, I see nothing but strawberries, strawberries at breakfast, strawberries stewed by Meep. I smell strawberries, must have a rest from them and go upstairs. His being washed up here, strawberries. The remainder are being bottled. In the evening, 2 jars unsealed. Daddy quickly makes them into jam. The next morning, 2 more unsealed and 4 in the afternoon. Van Don hadn't brought them to the right temperature for sterilizing. Now Daddy makes jam every evening. We eat strawberries with our porridge, skimmed milk with strawberries, bread and butter with strawberries, strawberries for dessert, strawberries with sugar, strawberries with sand. For 2 whole days strawberries and nothing but strawberries. Then the supply was finished or in bottles and under lock and key. I say, and Margot calls out, the greengrocer on the corner has let us have some green peas, 19 pounds. That's nice of him, I replied. And it certainly is, but oh, the work, ugh. You've all got to help shelling peas on Saturday morning, Mummy announced when we were at table. And, sure enough, the big enamel pan duly appeared this morning, filled to the brim. Shelling peas is a boring job, but you ought to try skinning the pods. I don't think many people realize how soft and tasty the pod is when the skin on the inside has been removed. However, an even greater advantage is that the quantity which can be eaten is about triple the amount of when one only eats the peas. It's an exceptionally precise, finicky job, pulling out the skin. Perhaps it's all right for pedantic dentists or precise office workers, but for an impatient teenager like me, it's frightful. We began at 9:30. I got up at 10:30. At 11:30 I sat down again. This refrain hummed in my ears. Bend the top, pull the skin, remove the string, throw out the pod, etc., etc. They dance before my eyes. Green, green, green maggots, strings, rotten pods, green, green, green. Just for the sake of doing something, I chatter the whole morning, any nonsense that comes into my head, make everyone laugh and bore them stiff. But every string that I pull makes me feel more certain that I never want to be just a housewife only. We finally have breakfast at 12 o'clock, but from 12:30 until 1:15 we've got to go skinnering pods again. I'm just about seasick when I stop, the others a bit too. I go and sleep till 4 o'clock, but I'm still upset by those wretched peas. Yours, and Saturday, July 15th, 1944. Dear Kitty, we have had a book from the library with the challenging title of, "What do you think of the modem young girl?" I want to talk about this subject today. The author of this book criticizes the youth of today from top to toe, without, however, condemning the whole of the young brigade as incapable of anything good. On the contrary, she is rather of the opinion that if young people wished, they have it in their hands to make a bigger, more beautiful and better world, but that they occupy themselves with superficial things without giving a thought to real beauty. In some passages, the writer gave me very much the feeling she was directing her criticisms at me, and that's why I want to lay myself completely bare to you for once and defend myself against this attack. I have one outstanding trait in my character, which must strike anyone who knows me for any length of time, and that is my knowledge of myself. I can watch myself and my actions, just like an outsider. The end of every day I can face entirely without prejudice, without making excuses for her, and watch what's good and what's bad about her. This self-consciousness haunts me, and every time I open my mouth I know as soon as I've spoken whether that ought to have been different, or that was right as it was. There are so many things about myself that I condemn. I couldn't begin to name them all. I understand more and more how true Daddy's words were when he said, "All children must look after their own upbringing. Parents can only give good advice or put them on the right paths. But the final forming of a person's character lies in their own hands." In addition to this, I have lots of courage. I always feel so strong and as if I can bear a great deal. I feel so free and so young. I was glad when I first realized it, because I don't think I shall easily bow down before the blows that inevitably come to everyone. But I've talked about these things so often before. Now I want to come to the chapter of Daddy and Mummy don't understand me. Daddy and Mummy have always thoroughly spoiled me, were sweet to me, defended me, and have done all that parents could do. And yet I've felt so terribly lonely for a long time, so left out, neglected, and misunderstood. Daddy tried all he could to check my rebellious spirit, but it was no use. I have cured myself by seeing for myself what was wrong in my behavior and keeping it before my eyes. How is it that Daddy was never any support to me in my struggle? Why did he completely miss the mark when he wanted to offer me a helping hand? Daddy tried the wrong methods. He always talked to me as a child who was going through difficult phases. It sounds crazy, because Daddy's the only one who has always taken me into his confidence, and no one but Daddy has given me the feeling that I'm sensible. But there's one thing he's omitted. You see, he hasn't realized that for me the fight to get on top was more important than all else. I didn't want to hear about symptoms of your age, or other girls, or it wears off by itself. I didn't want to be treated as a girl like all others, but as Anne on her own merits. Pim didn't understand that. For that matter, I can't confide in anyone, unless they tell me a lot about themselves, and as I know very little about Pim, I don't feel that I can tread upon more intimate ground with him. Pim always takes up the older, fatherly attitude, tells me that he too has had similar passing tendencies. But still he's not able to feel with me like a friend, however hard he tries. These things have made me never mention my views on life nor my well-considered theories to anyone but my diary and, occasionally, to Margot. I concealed from Daddy everything that perturbed me. I never shared my ideals with him. I was aware of the fact that I was pushing him away from me. I couldn't do anything else. I have acted entirely according to my feelings, but I have acted in the way that was best for my peace of mind, because I should completely lose my repose and self-confidence, which I have built up so shakily, if, at this stage, I were to accept criticisms of my half-completed task. And I can't do that even from Pim, although it sounds very hard, for not only have I not shared my secret thoughts with Pim, but I have often pushed him even further from me, by my irritability. This is a point that I think a lot about. Why is it that Pim annoys me? So much so that I can hardly bear him teaching me that his affectionate ways strike me as being put on, that I want to be left in peace and would really prefer it if he dropped me a bit until I felt more certain in my attitude towards him. Because I still have a gnawing feeling of guilt over that horrible letter that I dared to write him when I was so wound up. Oh, how hard it is to be really strong and brave in every way. Yet, this was not my greatest disappointment. No, I ponder far more over Peter than Daddy. I know very well that. I conquered him instead of he conquering me. I created an image of him in my mind, pictured him as a quiet, sensitive, lovable boy who needed affection and friendship. I needed a living person to whom I could pour out my heart. I wanted a friend who'd help to put me on the right road. I achieved what I wanted, and, slowly but surely, I drew him towards me. Finally, when I had made him feel friendly, it automatically developed into an intimacy which, on second thought, I don't think I ought to have allowed. We talked about the most private things, and yet up till now we have never touched on those things that filled, and still rill, my heart and soul. I still don't know quite what to make of Peter. Is he superficial, or does he still feel shy, even of me? But dropping that, I committed one error in my desire to make a real friendship. I switched over and tried to get at him by developing it into a more intimate relation, whereas I should have explored all other possibilities. He longs to be loved, and I can see that he's beginning to be more and more in love with me. He gets satisfaction out of our meetings, whereas they just have the effect of making me want to try it out with him again. And yet, I don't seem able to touch on the subjects that I'm so longing to bring out into the daylight. I drew Peter towards me, far more than he realizes. Now he clings to me, and for the time being, I don't see any way of shaking him off and putting him on his own feet. When I realized that he could not be a friend for my understanding, I thought I would at least try to lift him up out of his narrow-mindedness and make him do something with his youth. For in its innermost depths youth is lonelier than old age. I saw this saying in some book, and I've always remembered it and found it to be true. Is it true then that grown-ups have a more difficult time here than we do? No, I know it isn't. Older people have formed their opinions about everything and don't waver before they act. It's twice as hard for us young ones to hold our ground and maintain our opinions, in a time when all ideals are being shattered and destroyed, when people are showing their worst side and do not know whether to believe in truth and right and God. Anyone who claims that the older ones have a more difficult time here certainly doesn't realize to what extent our problems weigh down on us, problems for which we are probably much too young, but which thrust themselves upon us continually until, after a long time, we think we've found a solution, but the solution doesn't seem able to resist the facts which reduce it to nothing again. That's the difficulty in these times. Ideals, dreams, and cherished hopes rise within us, only to meet the horrible truth and be shattered. It's really a wonder that I haven't dropped all my ideals, because they seem so absurd and impossible to carry out. Yet I keep them, because in spite of everything I still believe that people are really good at heart. I simply can't build up my hopes on a foundation consisting of confusion, misery, and death. I see the world gradually being turned into a wilderness. I hear the ever-approaching thunder, which will destroy us too. I can feel the sufferings of millions, and yet, if I look up into the heavens, I think that it will all come right, that this cruelty too will end, and that peace and tranquility will return again. In the meantime, I must uphold my ideals, for perhaps the time will come when I shall be able to carry them out. Yours and Friday, July 21st, 1944. Dear Kitty, now I am getting really hopeful. Now things are going well at last, yes. Really, they're going well. Super news. An attempt has been made on Hitler's life, and not even by Jewish communists or English capitalists this time, but by a proud German general, and what's more, he's a count and still quite young. The Führer's life was saved by divine providence and, unfortunately, he managed to get off with just a few scratches and burns. A few officers and generals who were with him have been killed and wounded. The chief culprit was shot. Anyway, it certainly shows that there are lots of officers and generals who are sick of the war and would like to see Hitler descend into a bottomless pit. When they've disposed of Hitler, their aim is to establish a military dictator who will make peace with the Allies. Then they intend to rearm and start another war in about 20 years' time. Perhaps the divine power tarried on purpose in getting him out of the way, because it would be much easier and more advantageous to the Allies if the impeccable Germans kill each other off. It'll make less work for the Russians and the English, and they'll be able to begin rebuilding their own towns all the sooner. But still, we're not that far yet, and I don't want to anticipate the glorious events too soon. Still, you must have noticed, this is all sober reality and that I'm in quite a matter-of-fact mood today. For once, I'm not jabbering about high ideals. And what's more, Hitler has even been so kind as to announce to his faithful, devoted people that from now on everyone in the armed forces must obey the Gestapo, and that any soldier who knows that one of his superiors was involved in this low, cowardly attempt upon his life may shoot the same on the spot, without court-martial. What a perfect shambles it's going to be. Little Johnny's feet begin hurting him during a long march. He's snapped at by his boss, the officer. Johnny grabs his rifle and cries out, "You wanted to murder the Führer, so there's your reward." One bang, and the proud chief who dared to tick off little Johnny has passed into eternal life, or is it eternal death? In the end, whenever an officer finds himself up against a soldier, or having to take the lead, he'll be wetting his pants from anxiety, because the soldiers will dare to say more than they do. Do you gather a bit what I mean, or have I been skipping too much from one subject to another? I can't help it. The prospect that I may be sitting on school benches next October makes me feel far too cheerful to be logical. Oh, dearie me, hadn't I just told you that I didn't want to be too hopeful? Forgive me, they haven't given me the name, little bundle of contradictions, all for nothing. Yours and